What's up, world? You are welcome to Nesteli. Today we are discussing Homo Deus. Now, Homo Deus by Yuval Noah Harari is another book by the same author, just like Sapien, which I just discussed a while back. And honestly, the feedback I've gotten from that book is really wonderful. It's amazing that a lot more people are interested in this. Now, here's what you need to know about this Homo Deus, what I'm talking about now. It's actually a book that a lot of people, I think, I happen to be on Twitter with Oyo State governor. Not like we're chatting or anything. He put a picture of the book and he was like, this is a great book for things like governance and, so I was like, I just finished Sapien, should I go on and do this one? And a lot of people were like, yeah, please do it. So in addition to the fact that Script already suggested that since you listen to this one, you should listen to this one. That's why I decided to read this. Now, if this is your first time, I am Nez. Please subscribe and join us where we sit down and talk about a book and I convince you to read a book. So I'm here to convince you to read Homo Deus. Now, Homo Deus, let's start with what does Homo Deus mean? Homo Deus is an advanced version of the Sapien. Who is the Sapien? We are the Sapien. Human race, do you understand? And Homo Deus instead of writing, he wrote the history of tomorrow, something like that. The history of tomorrow. It's a very interesting play of word. But basically it's him using the history that he has learned of the earth and of sapiens, that's human beings, to forecast or to put an idea of what he believes tomorrow is going to be like for humankind. And by tomorrow he's talking about, right now we just entered the 21st century, so he's talking about the 21st century, I'm looking at my laptop here, the 21st century, the centuries after that, what it's going to be like. Okay, so I want to give a very quick run through. He talked about how man, that's us, the sapien, has been able to move ourselves away from some particular problems, and that has made us a certain kind of people. Now, before the 20th century, the major concerns of man were things like war, disease, famine. Do you understand? Those were major issues. So what that meant was that most times if a man is cultivating or planning his future, he has to consider, what if our neighbors decide to go to war with us? What if the neighboring village or the neighboring set of people decide to go to war with us? Now, in the 19th century or the 20th century, most of that is gone. Do you understand? That's from 1900 to like 2000. War, even though it still happened and all that, it wasn't as much as before. It wasn't as erratic. There wasn't people waking up one day and deciding that, okay, so because this person annoyed us, we're going to go and destroy their land and we're going to fight and take over everything. All that was gone. Then diseases was a major thing. Like, we know that sometimes people would cough and die from coughing. It's not funny though, but that's how it was. And then he talks about what else? I said health. So like what that meant was that people had more children because the possibility of child immortality was very, very like high. The possibility of a child living till 6 years was 6 years was very low. So it's like if somebody has 9 children, the possibility of the 9 remaining until they're like in their 20s was very low. So it's like if you might have 9 children, I might end up having just 5 in the end. So you lose 4. So like something all of us took as regular. And then plagues were very high. That was another thing. And now I think about it, now that we just experienced COVID, the way he described the way plagues have been, I'm thinking to myself, how come we didn't get a plague much earlier? Because if nature works the way it was working the whole time, COVID in my mind should have come much earlier. It's wrong I'm saying that, but honestly, because talk about the fact that the way smallpox moved, the way most of the diseases, measles, diarrhea, there will be a great bout of the diarrhea and suddenly villages will get cleaned out. So it's like numbers of people that died were much higher then. So right now we are at the most population, at least counting from where we are now, we are at 7 billion. We're actually like, for the first time we're dense and we're not dying as much. Now it's hard for us to believe that, especially when you think about people dying from cancer, people that die, child mortality, people that die during giving birth, those that still die during war and all that. The number is still outstanding. It's a lot of numbers. But if you compare it to this time in, let's say we're in 2021, but let's say in 1821, People died, as in people died way more. All it took was for one person to sneeze, suddenly there's a flu virus, everybody dies. I'm telling you, you look left and you look right, with the best medical team that was available at that time, people would die. So that was where he was coming from. So it's like, this is where we're coming from. We've been able to solve this problem, taking care of things like war. So war has reduced. War is not as profitable as it used to be, according to him. Before, war was, if I loan you money to go to war, by the time you make all your money, I'll tell you that, okay, when you win this war, a portion of the land that you take over will belong to me and my family. And that's what it usually is, but that's not how it works these days. So it's like, war is no more as profitable anymore, so people are not fighting as much. Yes, there are still tribal issues and all that. He actually explained why that is a big issue, especially here in Africa. And so it's like, it's not as much as it used to be. Then he now talked about 21st century, or from then on, what to expect. Said that the major things that are going to be issue is bliss, health, right? Is it health? Is issue, I think they call it issue bliss, sorry. He called it bliss, health, and he called it divinity. Immortality, sorry, and divinity. I didn't quite understand the divinity side, because I'm like, divinity and immortality is not the same thing. But let me explain those things. So these are things, what I like about this is that it actually opens your mind to where the world could be in the future. Things that you could, being able to, sometimes when you're successful is when you go to the future and plan toward it. Then people come there and meet you and you have money. Does that make any sense? So what I like about it, like, okay, so bliss, we're at the point where happiness is becoming so important, and you would think that people that have everything that is needed will be happier, but that's not the case. Do you understand? People that have, when there's no war, there's no more diseases, no more frights, money is not that big a problem. Famine, thank you, there's no more famine. Most people, while there's still a world hunger problem, it's still better than the way it used to be, when people would sit down and drink blood of cows because they're so hungry and they're thirsty, they cannot eat anything. Do you understand? So it's like, it's not as bad anymore. So you would think that countries that have a lot of all those things sorted will be happier, but you realize they're actually more miserable than they've always been. So it's like, there's a need for bliss. People that need to be happy, what do you do with them? How do you get them to be happy? If they're not happy, they become non-functional, they become suicidal, mental issues show up. So he was like, this is something that's going to be a major problem. Right now, it's still manageable. 30, 50 years from now, that could change greatly. Immortality. People don't want to get old anymore. People don't want to get old. People want to live forever. Of course, there are up and down sides to it, but the fact is that as it is now, medical science is looking for ways to solve this problem. Now, a lot of people will be like, no, that's not possible. But here's how medicine has worked since we've known. This one, I think I've always been with. Let me introduce plastic surgery. The idea of reconstructive surgery showed up, I think, in World War II, when a doctor was trying to make sure that he reconstructed some of the soldiers' bodies so that they don't have to go home to their wives and their moms looking worse than they actually, like, looking really bad. That's where it came from. So it came from a place of trying to help people. But where we are with reconstructive surgery now is that people that are healthy and they are fine are trying to reconstruct their body anyway. So like me, I'm fine now, nothing is wrong with me and all that, but I feel like my double chin should be removed. So I'll go to a doctor and I'll have it removed. That is how medicine works. Medicine has always come from a place of trying to solve a problem to it gets to a point where people that don't have a problem still want to change something. So if you can look at it that way, you will understand that with time, people are trying to solve the problem of divinity. So it's like we're at the point where people who don't need to die. When a child of 7 years is suffering from some cancer that you assume that you should be someone that is at least 100 years should be suffering because they've been through life and things have happened to them. But it's like a 7-year-old child or a newborn. So the doctor will do everything within their power to solve this problem. But here's what happens. If this problem gets solved for this newborn child who is suffering from a stroke, that's what stops a 95-year-old from taking the same stroke medication. So divinity and immortality is becoming a major issue. So what happens is that 30 to 80 years from now, people will live much longer and much healthier and also look just like every other person. People complain about body, like some people say from the age of 40, if you drink air, you add weight. Some people want to stay how they looked when they were 20. So it's like, what would they do about that? We already see it happening. People are going through crazy extremes, eating next to nothing, starving themselves, taking pills instead of eating, some are smoking. Do you understand? Just so like, So understand, get to the program. Do you understand? It's not about whether you think it's correct or not. It's about what's happening. There's the ideal and there's the reality. So that's how he kind of put on it. Then he talked about tech. Tech is something that I think a lot of us already know. I think if you have kids, make sure that your kids consider tech very seriously, because tech is taking over the world. We don't like the idea of it, but it's taking over the world. They are in between all this. There are some these things that don't exactly give me happy. Honestly, it causes a state of panic in me. The Homo Deus, who becomes the advanced human being, would likely have a lot of tech functioning in them, turning them to what you can call superhumans. Now, if with time, let's say 100 years from now or 200 years from now, more people are superhuman, what happens to the regular human being like me, who has no plans of doing anything to themselves? They are fine the way they are. We would likely be removed. Remember, the sapiens are very intolerant. I said that in the first video. They will likely be removed. What I mean, removed, executed, massacred, because they become useless in the law of nature. Could. He's not saying that this is a fact, but this could happen. Or if we are still needed for something, maybe for breeding or something like that, we can just be treated like, let's say, animals, put locked up in cages. If you think about the way pigs are pulled together, you gather pigs together. When they have children, you separate the moms from the children. Or you separate the mom from the children, the mother continues to breed, the children will be fed fats, and 6 months down the line, they'll be killed and used for bacon. Do you understand? So we have to consider the fact that those things could actually happen to the regular human beings that is not super anymore, because they refuse to be super. So it's a very panicky situation to be in. But this book is wonderful. I have a lot of concerns with this book. Like, first of all, I felt like he was talking a lot about what's happening to the West. So it's like he's using what's happening in the West to determine where Homo Deus will be. While I understand that the West is the western part of the world is the most advanced part, it's not the only part. So just because they are doing a certain thing doesn't mean that same thing is going to be the same thing that happened to places like, let's say, Africa. And then speaking of Africa, I felt like he completely neglected the part of South Africa. South Africa has played a great part in understanding the Homo sapiens, because they went through apartheid for years and they are still suffering from the aftermath of that. Why isn't that even being discussed? So that was a concern for me. Then honestly, when I was done with this book, I have even more questions, but at this point I'm actually more, I'm more like, this man is not serious. But of course, it's easy for me to say this because we're talking of the future. So we're talking about a reality that doesn't even exist. We're talking about a possibility of a reality. Of course, at the end, he put a disclaimer. See, I'm not telling you, this is not a prophecy, but I'm just talking based upon our history. This is likely what's going to happen. So that is it and this book. I hope I've convinced you to read this. Leave a comment below if you think, okay, yeah, I should try and read this book or not. But Homo Deus is actually a very popular book. Most bookshops that you check out would find it. So check out Robin Heights, check out the Book Peddlers, ask those guys, check out Latana, Jianstan on Instagram, ask them, where do I get this book? Or just Google Homo Deus in Nigeria, where should we find it then? You can find out where you can get it from there. I listened to it on Scribd. It's another 15-hour long book. I also felt like this book, it was unnecessary for it to be 15 hours, even though I think at this point this is me just being lazy, because I would listen to 1 hour and I'll feel like I've listened to 3 hours because I'm like a lot of information. So I was pausing a lot. I'll pause and then I'll go back and read, because I'm like, I need to stew on what I just read. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I'm really enjoying this month. It's going really well. I hope you're really enjoying it too. Don't forget to give this video a like. Please subscribe to Next Telly and share this video so that more people can understand and want to know more, open our minds more. And please don't forget to leave suggestions of videos that you think are books you think I should read below. So thank you so much for watching. Bye bye.